Okay, so this is just a brief tutorial on how to actually navigate through the virtual field trip. So once you've used the instructions on how to download and install it onto your computer, whether it's a PC or a Mac, I'm using a Mac at the moment, but once you've installed it, bring it up and enter in your ID and your password that we've given you so that all the data and all the evidence that you collect is going to be available to you to access in an inventory, which is on another website. So enter in your ID and password and log in. That's just going to take a minute or two to load. So the best place to actually access the virtual field trip and go through it is going to be on campus. The internet on campus is extremely fast, and the server on campus where all of these items are, all the data is stored, is also on campus. So that's probably the best place to do it from, and you are going to need an internet connection, because each time you open up the application, it'll need to download the data from the server. So now that you're inside the application, you can either use the arrow keys or the WASD keys to scroll around. You can also use the mouse. On a PC, you use the right click and you can scroll around, or on a Mac, which is what I've got, you push down with 2 fingers and you can scroll around. Now, I much prefer actually to use the WASD or the arrow keys to scroll around, and then use the mouse as a way of clicking on the hotspots like this one. So obviously this is where the dresser formation is. So just hover the mouse over, you'll notice that the hotspot will light up. So if you click on the hotspot, it'll open up into a north-south facing map on the horizon. Now normally geological maps usually have north facing up, but in this case we've got it facing lengthways. So just be aware of that. This is actually the top of the map and this is actually the bottom of the map. So these don't actually follow on. Now as you scroll around, you'll find that there are a number of localities that you can visit, and each of the localities have different sites attached. So the Dresser Barite Mine has 4 sites, the Barite Curl has 2 sites, the kaolinite cutting has 2 sites, and so on. So you can continue to scroll around. You can choose whichever locality you want to start out to begin with. I would suggest, however, going through sequentially through the sites within the locality, simply because it'll make it easier for you to remember what you've actually sort of been through. You aren't restricted to going in any particular order in terms of the localities. Just choose as you wish and have a look and explore each of the different panoramas or sites within those localities. So if you click on one of those sites, you'll find that there are hotspots within the site. So just make sure you scroll around. You'll see that they're translucent until you hover over them, and when you hover over them and click, you'll find that a block of text will come up and an associated image. So just make sure that you scroll around to find that text and also to be able to see that image. Now this white border here means that there's more photos. So as you click along, you'll see that maybe some of the photos are traced so that you can actually see what are the key features we're trying to bring out. Or it might be a rock type in that particular area. And of course the text here might actually change, so just make sure that you note if what the text is associated with each of the different images. And again, traced image, just showing some of those details that we want you to see. So notice how there's no white border anymore. It means you've seen the whole collection of evidence here. Now if you want to collect this piece of evidence, you press C, and you'll notice that so to get out of here and back into the panorama, you move the cursor over to basically to the site, click on it, and it'll bring you back. And now if you'll notice, if I go back into that hotspot and click on it, it'll say you've already collected this item. So you'll be able to know what's going into your inventory. And again, you can go through looking at the different images, noting what the text is, and once you've seen them all, so the border's not there anymore, you can say, yep, oh okay, I want to collect that, press C, that'll disappear, and you can go back into the site, and you'll notice if you go back in, you know that you've already collected this item into your inventory. Go to another locality, look at the different sites in there, click on those hotspots. So you'll notice here I've already collected this item, and so I've been using that same ID and password previously. So just make sure that you only ever use your ID and password, because if you use somebody else's, then it's actually going to go into their inventory. So now that you've gone through the virtual field trip, and you don't have to have just gone through it once, you can go through it over and over again, obviously, but you can actually come between the virtual field trip and your inventory of all of the evidence that you've been collecting by pressing C when you've viewed these images. So if you go to burton.icinema.unsw.edu.au:8082, you'll be able to access your inventory. So this link will be made available on Moodle as well. So it's the same ID and password that you use to get into the virtual field trip. And you'll just see it's really simple. You've got each of the different localities with each of the sites from those localities. As you can see here, the ones that I've collected have popped up, and you can click on these and it'll give you a nice high-res big screen capture of that. So 3 things really to remember. Make sure that you take notes while you go through the virtual field trip. Don't feel like you need to go through it just once. You can keep going back to it and navigate between the inventory and the virtual field trip. The most important thing is to assess the evidence you are collecting and why this adds value to your story.